Hi, Leah.
Hey Judy, how's it going?
It is going.
Welcome back to another episode of the Anatomy of Ancestral Healing. And today we are talking about seasons in all the ways. Seasons of life, literal seasons, transitions to different seasons and phases. And so I thought that we could start by pulling a card.
Sounds good.
All right. So I will pull one, or actually I'm going to hand it to you in a second too to pull one. This is the Wad Unknown Pocket Tarot by Kim Kranz. And I will shuffle and hold the theme of seasons in mind as I do that. And let's just see what wants to come through. So I will pull one and then I will hand you the deck to pull one too.
Thank you. Seasons. It just fell out.
Uh-huh.
Pull that. It doesn't matter if it's upside down.
I don't necessarily work with tarot that way, but some people do.
Okay.
And it's either way is okay.
Just gonna take it.
What'd you get?
Father of Wands.
Father of Wands. And I got the Ace of Pentacles.
Look at that. It's intense.
Woo! Yeah.
Oh, I love that. It's dream catching.
Yeah. Stump of a tree.
Oh, it's not a dream catcher.
I mean, I think it is. I think it could be whatever you want it to be. There's a lot of aspects of that. Let's talk about your card first. What do you see in this image?
I see a wand and a rattlesnake, and it's like a lightning bolt or a crack that's opening. Oh, it looks like a storm, so a thunderstorm is what I see.
A crack that's opening. That's powerful. And when you see that image and you think about seasons, what comes up for you?
I don't know. When I see this, it feels harsh, sudden. Yeah, like a flash of something.
Yep. And does that make sense when you think about seasons or transitions?
When I feel into the snake, it makes sense with the transitions. When the snake's expanding, it releases the skin. And in the releasing of the skin, then they're really vulnerable at that stage until there's a hardening again. And the environment just keeps moving.
That makes sense. Anything else that wants to come through for that card?
I think that's it.
Okay. Would you like to read it or would you like me to read it?
Can you read it?
Sure. Father of Wands, charismatic and creative. The Father of Wands is a man of mystique and charisma. Others are drawn to him naturally, and he welcomes them with an open and loving heart. Usually, you'll find him involved in the healing arts, as he's deeply compassionate and in tune with life and nature. He's able to hold steady and still during conflict.
Cool.
How's that land?
It's landing. Not really. I notice I'm very, that's so interesting. So the snake moves slowly. So that's how I feel that my body is.
Yeah.
And then I feel like everything around me is just spinning out of control. So while you were reading, I wasn't listening.
Uh-huh. You were the snake.
Mm-hmm.
You were like still and everything else was going on around.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you feel like that shows that up at all during times of transition for you?
What's happening today? I have one kid out of school and another kid finishing this week, and the end of school festivity is really intense. And so I just notice everything feels like it's going spinning out of control, and I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing. And I just want to sit still and make it all go away.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else you want to say about that?
I think that's enough.
Okay. And we'll come back, obviously, to your kids and transition. Yeah. All right. So I pulled the Ace of Pentacles. Sorry, I keep having trouble with. There we go. Ace of Pentacles. And as Judy said, it does feel like it has this dream catcher energy to it. I also see it as like a cut tree stump and then little sprouts growing from it. So I feel like while it could be easy to see death in a tree stump, there's also growth coming from it. And also a focal point.
That red center.
Yep. And it feels very fiery. So actually, this card to me feels very similar to your card in the sense of like the kind of keeping the focused stillness of the target your eye on the prize, so to speak, however you want to say that, but everything's swirling around you as death and rebirth is happening. That's what's coming through with this card. Yeah. And how do you keep your dreams alive? Back to your dream catcher amidst all of that. Yeah. So let's see. The book wants to tell us about this one. All right, the ace is in the beginning. Okay. Prosperous beginnings. In the center of even the giant redwood trees, a tiny seedling once stood. Such is the energy of the Ace of Pentacles. It's the seed that takes root, grounding you for the future. You're in the beginning phases of a prosperous venture. Stay grounded, go outside, and take time to appreciate nature. You may also find a windfall of wealth headed your way. So when I think about this, along with what we felt in the energy of the card, it does feel like it's akin to the like death, rebirth, growth, but also not negating the hardship of getting through the initial phase of transition.
Hardship of the initial phase of transition really lands.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it requires so much energy to get that started, right?
Yep. Yeah, sure does. Is it okay if we go back to your kids and the transition, the whirlwind that you're finding yourself in?
Sure.
Yeah, and that they're finding themselves in.
I don't know if they're finding themselves in it.
Okay.
I find myself in it hardcore. They're like excited about not doing anything. And I feel anxiety about not having plans for them, which is interesting.
Does that connect at all ancestrally for you when you think about it?
Yes. And my ancestry, I think, is unusual to some folks in that I grew up in a restaurant. So my time was either spent at school or at work.
Yeah.
So there was not like, let's go and go to the pool energy. There was no like, what do you want to do today energy. None of that at all. It was just like schoolwork, work. And then the transition between those two of sleep.
Yeah.
And go to work. It's basically what I've done in my adult life now. And it's interesting to have kids where the social media and the marketing and all of the outward feedback is there should be summer camps and there should be these huge European vacations and I should be doing this and that for the kids. And it feels like a foreign experience to me. Even though I long for it, I don't know how to bring it in. And I find myself in this place every single year. Oh my God, I didn't plan a vacation or I didn't plan this well is how I experience it.
And it sounds different than how you were raised and grew up. Like you were just built into the restaurant family business, it sounds like. And yeah.
And then even after my dad died, because the work that we all knew was in a restaurant, like I continued just working in restaurants. As I got older, then I became the wait staff. But it was always, my life was always moored, oriented, that core of the tree, right?
Yeah.
To work.
Yeah.
So when summer rest season comes,
Put that out
what
there.
do we do?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's also interesting how I think about this a lot, like how actually summer is very active, right? So even though we think of it as like work rest season, it's actually like very activating. If we think about it elementally, it's the sign of fire, right? So it's like vibrant and alive and like moving. And there's actually a lot of energy that circulates around spring and summer. Yeah. Yeah. So it can also be like this odd, like human season versus, at least if you are in a place where you have a summer season, right? If you have the 4 seasons, then there's the literal like activation of the earthly season too, that's juxtaposing the season of rest.
Like it doesn't feel natural.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, I hadn't really considered that.
Yeah. When really fall and winter, the times where everyone's like getting back into school and work gear, like actually those are inward rest seasons.
Interesting.
Naturally. Yeah.
It's interesting to think about how much of how we've been programmed to be in society is actually counter our natural rhythms.
Yep. I know.
What's coming up in you, Leah?
I was thinking a lot about my childhood and thinking about, yeah, I didn't have a lot of structure at all. Like I had parents, I think I have shared before on other episodes that like they lived out in the country. Most of my life, I couldn't even see a neighbor. And so I didn't have easy access to friends. I didn't have easy access to like summer programs or things like that. And I was an only child. So with two working parents. So I feel like I was given a lot of free time, and that was actually hard for me in a lot of ways. So I think I dealt with some loneliness for sure. And then there were some summers where my parents would be like, okay, the structure we're going to give you is to send you to Seattle to live with your aunt and your cousin for a month, or to go to my dad's family in Missouri for a month or whatever. So I would often just go off and spend time with my cousins, and I have very fond memories of that. Yeah, that was good. And so, yeah, so it was less for us, it was less about summer camps and more about like family time. Yeah, especially when I didn't live near them. Yeah, so that was good. But I think the concept of things like applying to camps and all these things I hear people talk about feel very foreign to me because it's just not so much a thing when you live very rurally. So interesting.
Do you know when you're supposed to sign up for summer camps?
Like
So
way early.
We're New England.
It's like
Which kind of
around the
sets up
holidays,
the.
right? Yeah.
It was October.
October. Oh my God. So even
It keeps
earlier.
getting earlier. Like it used to be
Wow.
like November time or
Wow.
December, and now it's like October,
Wow.
just because the need is so intense. And let's just be real about summer camp. It's basically expensive daycare.
Yeah.
Because school, how it was structured, was a way of childcare.
Yep.
And not even structured well because it's outside of the work hours. So working parents, single parents really struggle with childcare in the summer months.
Totally. I'm sure that's part of why my parents were like, you're gonna go somewhere for a month. Yeah. 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 Huh. So if we think about are there other ways in which you think about seasons of life for yourself?
It's interesting because I am actively trying to decolonize.
Yeah.
And in that, there is this push and pull. So I'm taking 3 weeks off this summer, which is more than I've ever done.
In a row?
Not in a row.
Okay.
I could not mind handle it.
Uh-huh.
And there's tension. Like part of me is, but I'm so behind on my strategy and my online classes and what about my cycle breaker groups and like all of this stuff. And I could actually use some time to catch up. And then there's this very exhausted part of me that's just, can we just not do anything? And so there's this intense tension around that, which doesn't allow any space or freedom in going, what is it that I actually want to call into my life? Feels like slower, like that snake, of what do I actually want to be doing, not what I should be doing.
Yeah.
I think the pacing, my natural rhythm pacing in my body, I think is a lot slower than I'm pushing it to do.
How's it to say that?
I think there's sadness, like a longing for that slowness, and then a frustration that it doesn't feel possible in the society that we're in.
Yeah. For sure. I feel like that comes up a lot for me too. Yeah. I think for me, and I hear this from a lot of other people too, so hopefully this will land for some of you watching also, is that my energy really ebbs and flows. I tend to have a pretty steady undercurrent, but in terms of like extra energy, I feel like for me that really ebbs and flows. And so there are some weeks I feel like really on, and some weeks I'm just like, I just want to be in a cave with silence. And I often feel like I'm someone that would love to like work in a very concentrated amount when I have the energy to do that, and then be able to pull back when I don't. And I feel like we don't live in a society that really provide space for that either. I think there are ways we can build it in. Like I was just talking with somebody about social media content the other day and like this idea of like batch creation and then being able to put those episodes or posts out when you don't have as much energy. So I do feel like there are ways in which we can do that, but it still feels not fully embodied, I think, a lot of the time for people and for myself. Yeah, it's hard. And then we beat up ourselves about not being consistent or like our energy not having the stamina, those things that we feel like we should have.
It's interesting because there's this research now around like our periods of there is a set time that you're going to have more energy and there's going to be a set time that you're going to be tired.
Yeah.
And I think also once we hit menopause, our energy actually increases. Did you hear about this? Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the most productive time in women is often around after the menopause. It's okay, now I have more energy or focus for something that's not around this drive for children or this socialized
reproductive drive.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I love hearing stories about women being like, it was my 50s, 60s, or like my golden years. I felt so free. And yeah, it's very empowering to hear that, for me at least. Feel like, oh, this isn't a horribly dreaded season like I hear about sometimes. Yeah. So sure there's a bit of both and in there, but I am appreciative of the people that can like really speak to the power that comes with that transition days. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's so dreaded. It historically has felt so dreaded of, oh my gosh, menopause.
Yep.
And the societal push for constant youth. I think of the wisdom of the crone.
Totally.
And I'm excited. I'm just started my 50s and I'm actually quite excited and happy. This is the most authentic and energized I've felt and clear in my body. So
I love hearing that from you too.
I'm surprised I said it.
That's great. Yeah.
Anything else coming up for you around the seasons?
I think in a more overarching ancestral theme, what comes up for me too is how people really did live by the seasons a lot more. Just talking with somebody about eating seasonally and farmers markets and things like that, and ways that we can still be like in rhythm with the seasons. And also just thinking about what those foods actually provide for us and why they show up during those times. And the symbolism, I often think about root vegetables for the fall and winter, and it's like they're in the ground, in darkness, right?
Internal.
Internal. And they're very grounding, literally, right? Nourishing and heavy in a positive way, in the sense of, again, bringing that energy down and in. Yeah, and then you've got like dandelions that pop up in the spring that are like, eat me for liver health and clearing out any of the stagnancy that's left over from those heavier foods. And yeah, it's just really cool when we can connect to what nature has to offer us during these times. So I think a lot about that. I think it's so fascinating to look back and see ancestrally the foods that our ancestors ate seasonally too.
And it just makes me think of like the going in and going out of like the wisdom of the land that we're on and the food that's naturally produced, not how we're doing it now.
Right.
If we were to follow the rhythm of the earth, how much less we would produce. We don't need to produce as much as we're producing.
Yep.
And I feel that so strongly in my body as well. Like I don't need to be producing as much as I'm producing. And yet there is this pull because of the financial cost and what am I supposed to do with my retirement now that it's getting stripped? Like all of these things, I'm just noticing that it's like almost this forced environmental pressure.
Yeah.
Which is an adaptation to collective trauma, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is something that we keep trying to talk about. And how do we alchemize that so we can ground in ourselves, come back home over and over again?
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me think about the concept of rewilding in urban environments and how tricky that can be. That person's letting their yard go wild. There goes my
property value.
Exactly, my property value. And yet there's a lot of medicinal value in those weeds you're pulling up. There's a lot of amazing different migrating creatures that can come in and fill your garden with different types of beauty, like monarch butterflies and all that kind of stuff. When we just let the rewilding happen, but how resistant community can be to that too, right? Neighbors could be to that, or it's very tricky to navigate. And then the othering that comes from that, and like the historical patterns of being the other or the person doing the things that aren't congruent with what the rest of the community desires. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And on that note, it's like, I'm just going to speak from my experience. As I decolonize, I also need to manage my nervous system dysregulation when I'm doing something countercultural. So, using that example, if I choose to rewild my lawn,
Yeah.
I need to actively practice regulating myself when people walk by and roll their eyes or whatever. Because if I decide this is how I want to go, part of the practice is building in resource or structure around my sense of self to not let other people's opinions or belief systems impact my decision on how I want to live my life.
Yep.
And that's actually been really exhausting on one level, at first, especially. And then as I've been explaining to people why I'm living the way that I live, I'm actively practicing rewiring my nervous system. And as I speak more and more to it, like with my cycle breaker groups or the clients that I work with, there's more and more people who are doing a similar thing. And so I feel less and less alone.
Yeah.
But that's that process of planting the seed, letting it grow, weeding around, and like completely trying to focus on fortifying the root structure. Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. I think there's so much truth to that. And to add to that, I would say to the sense of communicating with neighbors. Hey, this is something I'm going to be working on. Here's why I've chosen to do this. Here's what I think we will all gain if we do this. If you have thoughts or questions, I'm open to hearing them, right? That can be really interesting what comes out of that too. My mom was just telling me that she met a woman who organizes dark night skies workshops, and essentially it's someone that talks about the beauty of a dark night sky because you can see all the stars and sometimes galaxies and all these things. And so there are initiatives cropping up in urban environments to create dark night skies again. So she goes in and she educates the public on how to speak with their political systems around doing things like shading street lamps so the light doesn't go up towards the sky, but there's still like how to work with safety concerns, things like that. I feel like that's a good example of how there can also be small initiatives started around these things too, and community education. Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
So, what's the alchemy that we're offering our listeners today?
I feel like the alchemy is around holding space for both. It feels so cliche because it comes up all the time, but I'm just going to say the way it's coming through. Space for death and rebirth, in the sense of how do I allow this thing that I can't control to be dying around me, to be chaotic, to be disorganized, and all the wildness that exists, while also simultaneously holding on to the truth that you know is your right to move forward with. Again, if we think about rewilding the yard, how do we regulate our nervous systems in a way that support our rewilding process and don't interfere with that process? Yeah. I feel like it's very hard to think about a succinct alchemization in that process, but for me, I think it's a practice of closing my eyes and literally feeling where both exist within me. And I do that a lot with so many things.
Can you say more about where both exist in me?
Yeah, like literally, I will close my eyes and visualize, yep, there's death. Here's what's attached to death for me in this moment. Here's rebirth and what's attached to that in this moment. And how do I hold both? How do they coexist in my nervous system and my body? Where do I feel them in my body? So I guess I would say, if I really synthesize it, the alchemy is coexistence.
Yeah.
like spaciousness to coexist within.
That's beautiful. The image that I got when listening to you was, and other people have talked about this, around the transition that we're in societally, like the chaos that's happening, the violence that's happening. It's pretty scary. And viewing it almost like transition to birth, like a child. One of the podcasts I was listening to was talking about, for doulas, birth doulas, they know that the person's about to deliver when they say the words, "I don't think I can do this." That's the code for, okay, the baby's coming.
Yeah.
Right? And I find myself in that moment quite a bit right now as I'm witnessing what's happening around us globally, the level of violence, the fear. And I feel this, I don't know if I can do this. And holding on to that, of that image of like, how do you go in and hold that duality at the same time of just hang on tight to myself, stay grounded in myself, give myself space to feel into what's happening around me and not be too impacted by it.
Yeah.
While also telling myself, and I think this is the hardest piece, which I think feels really soothing, is what if this is all unfolding as it's supposed to be?
Yeah.
This death that is like right up in front of our face right now, death that's like senseless, death that's forced. What if this is all part of something that's birthing something different? And how do I stay open to that process? I think it feels really important to me not to turn an eye to it.
Yeah.
To go on vacation, just completely check out. I know that there are spaces for breaks, but to stay grounded in, I am part of this that's unfolding around me. And this break that I'm taking is an important part of that process.
Absolutely. And what I have found, because I just had one of those breaks, is even if you're really truly unplugged, these moments will still find you. Meaning, like, you're never fully going to be in the dark. Yeah. And sometimes those moments can be even richer. Yeah. I'm excited for your break. When's your first one of the 3 weeks?
In 2 days, I leave for a week.
Good.
Yeah, it'll be nice. And I'm nervous.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Totally fair.
Yeah, I don't want to minimize how scary it is to be out there. Sometimes I just wish I could just stay home and not do it. Just explore and not go out at all.
Yep.
I want to just name, for folks who are feeling anxious about traveling or going out there, I'm with you.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So keep finding this pocket of focus and stillness. And
Circle in for some magic.
until next time,
Take good care, everyone.
thank you all.
Bye.